They were legends on screen, but their final moments happened far from the lights of Hollywood. From lonely hotel rooms in foreign cities to peaceful villas half a world away, these 15 stars met their end on distant soil. Stay until the end. Some stories are more haunting than any movie they ever made. Number 1. Charlie Chaplin. On Christmas Day in the year 1977, the world lost one of its greatest entertainers in the quiet village of Corsier-sur-Vevey, Switzerland. He had been living there for more than 2 decades, far away from the noise of Hollywood, surrounded by his wife Una and their children. At the age of 88, Chaplin passed away peacefully in his sleep, leaving behind a silence that echoed louder than any of his comedies. His death marked the end of an era, the final curtain call for a man whose art had defined laughter itself. In the years before his passing, Chaplin had lived a reclusive life by the shores of Lake Geneva. He rarely appeared in public, his health weakened by age and years of exile. Once the brightest star in Hollywood, he had been forced to leave America in 1952 after accusations of political sympathies during the Red Scare. The man who had brought the tramp to life was suddenly branded an outsider. Switzerland became his refuge, a land of peace for a man who had once made millions laugh through tears. That Christmas morning, his wife found him lifeless in bed. Outside, snow covered the Swiss hills like a silent curtain closing on a long, extraordinary life. The news spread quickly, from London to Los Angeles, from New York to Tokyo. Film reels were paused, and hearts across generations felt the same grief. The man who had once said that life is a tragedy when seen in close-up and a comedy in long shot had written his own ending in the calmest way imaginable. His funeral was simple, attended only by family and close friends. Yet a few months later, a bizarre event shocked the world again. Chaplin's body was stolen from his grave by 2 men demanding ransom. After an intense search lasting 11 weeks, the body was recovered and reburied under concrete to prevent another attempt. It was a final act of absurdity, a scene that might have belonged to one of his own films. But in truth, it was life imitating his art. Far from Hollywood, Charlie Chaplin's final chapter was one of peace, irony, and enduring humanity. Number 2. Audrey Hepburn. In January of the year 1993, the world awoke to heartbreaking news from Tolochenaz, a small village in Switzerland. Audrey Hepburn, the symbol of timeless grace and elegance, had passed away in her sleep at the age of 63 after a quiet and courageous battle with a rare form of abdominal cancer. Far from the glamour of Hollywood, she spent her final months surrounded by her 2 sons and her lifelong partner, Robert Wolders, in the serenity of her countryside home. The illness had first been discovered in November of the previous year. Doctors in Los Angeles operated on her, but when the diagnosis confirmed advanced cancer, she chose to return to Switzerland, a place she loved for its peace and distance from the chaos of fame. Each day she walked slowly through her garden, often pausing to watch the snow settle on the trees. She spoke little of her pain, focusing instead on the small joys that remained. Her friends said she never once complained, as if her life itself had already given her everything she needed. Her final wish was simple. She wanted no grand farewell, no spotlight, no performance, just music, flowers, and the people she loved. The day of her funeral, the village church overflowed with mourners, while the world watched in silence. Gregory Peck, her dear friend, broke down while reading her favorite poem. Outside, children from UNICEF held candles, a tribute to the woman who had spent her later years traveling through war zones to help them. Audrey Hepburn had lived her last decade not as a movie star, but as a humanitarian. From Somalia to Vietnam, she had walked through hunger and poverty, her eyes filled not with sorrow but compassion. Even as cancer consumed her strength, she continued to plan UNICEF projects from her home, proving that kindness was her truest legacy. When she finally left this world, she did so as gracefully as she had lived, without fear, without noise, without vanity. Her story remains one of rare beauty, the tale of a woman who shone brightest when the cameras stopped rolling. Which of Audrey's films still stays with you? And what moment from her life touched you the most? Share your thoughts below so we can remember her together. Number 3. Grace Kelly. On September 14th in the year 1982, the glamorous Princess of Monaco and beloved Hollywood actress took her final drive through the winding roads above Monte Carlo. She was returning from her country home in Rockagel with her daughter Stephanie when tragedy struck. Grace suffered a stroke behind the wheel, losing control of the car as it plunged off a steep mountain curve. The vehicle rolled down the rocky hillside, leaving her critically injured and her daughter badly hurt but alive. Doctors rushed Grace to the Princess Grace Hospital, the very institution that bore her name, but her injuries were too severe. She never regained consciousness. The following night, at the age of 52, the world lost the woman who had once enchanted millions on screen and then captured the heart of a prince. The news of her death spread quickly across continents, leaving fans stunned. Many refused to believe that the fairy tale ending of America's Golden Girl had ended so suddenly and so cruelly. Before her marriage to Prince Rainier, Grace Kelly had been the epitome of Hollywood elegance. Her performances in films like Rear Window, To Catch a Thief, and High Society had made her one of the most admired women of her generation. When she left Hollywood at the height of her fame to become a princess, it was as if she had stepped straight into a dream. Yet life in Monaco, though surrounded by luxury, was far from simple. She often missed her career, her independence, and the creative freedom she once enjoyed. In the days after her death, thousands gathered outside the royal palace, laying flowers in silence. Her funeral was attended by heads of state, movie stars, and ordinary people from every corner of the world. Alfred Hitchcock, who had directed her in her finest roles, called her loss a tragedy beyond words. Princess Diana, who would later share a similarly tragic fate, sent a wreath and a handwritten note. Grace Kelly was buried in the royal crypt beneath Monaco's cathedral, the same place where Prince Rainier would join her decades later. Her story remains one of beauty, elegance, and fate, a woman who lived like a dream and died like a legend, far from the world that first adored her. Number 4. Judy Garland. On June 22nd, in the year 1969, a gray morning in London began with devastating news that traveled quickly across the Atlantic. Judy Garland, the voice behind Over the Rainbow and one of Hollywood's brightest yet most fragile stars, was found dead in her rented house on Cadogan Lane. She was only 47 years old. The cause was determined to be an accidental overdose of barbiturates, a tragedy that many saw coming after years of exhaustion, heartbreak, and relentless pressure. In the months before her death, Judy had been performing in small London clubs, her once powerful voice trembling from years of strain. She had married her fifth husband, Mickey Deans, just 3 months earlier. Friends said she seemed hopeful, even planning a comeback, but her health had deteriorated. Decades of sleepless nights, diet pills, and constant touring had left her body fragile and her spirit weary. The woman who had made millions believe in dreams had quietly lost her own. Her life had been a dazzling but painful journey. From the moment she appeared as Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, she was adored by the world, but controlled by the studio system that treated her like a product. MGM executives monitored her weight, gave her stimulants to stay awake, and sedatives to sleep. Fame brought applause, but also isolation. Every concert, every film, every marriage seemed to take a piece of her away. The night before she died, neighbors heard laughter and music coming from her home. By morning, silence had settled over the narrow London street. When her husband found her, the light had already gone out of the woman who once lit up the world. The news reached America within hours, and a wave of sorrow swept across fans and fellow performers alike. Her funeral was held in New York City, drawing more than 20,000 people who stood for hours just to pay their respects. Among the flowers and tears lay the memory of a girl who had given the world one of its most beloved songs and then faded far too soon. Judy Garland's final curtain fell not on a grand stage, but in a quiet London room, far from Hollywood's golden glow. Number 5. Bette Davis. On October 6th, in the year 1989, the news came from Neuilly-sur-Seine, a quiet suburb outside Paris. Bette Davis, the fierce and unforgettable queen of Hollywood's golden age, had passed away at the age of 81. She had been in France to attend a film festival honoring her lifetime achievements, but her health had been failing for months. After a long struggle with breast cancer, her body finally gave out in a foreign land, far from the bright lights of Los Angeles that had once defined her. Her final years had been marked by both triumph and pain. Despite suffering several strokes and undergoing a mastectomy, she continued to work, refusing to fade quietly into retirement. Those close to her said she faced illness with the same iron will that had made her a legend on screen. She was proud, demanding, and unafraid of confrontation, a woman who fought her way through a male-dominated industry and never apologized for her strength. Even as her body weakened, her spirit remained sharp, her words quick, and her eyes full of that unmistakable fire. During her last visit to France, she had hoped for a brief moment of joy, to be surrounded by admirers who still remembered her brilliance. But soon after arriving, she fell ill and was hospitalized. Friends later recalled that she accepted her fate with calmness, saying she had lived fully and on her own terms. The woman who had once declared that old age is no place for sissies met her end with the same fearless honesty that defined her life. Her death was mourned deeply in Hollywood, where her legacy had already become legend. From Jezebel to All About Eve, Bette Davis had portrayed women who were complex, ambitious, and unrelenting. Off-screen, she was much the same. She challenged studios, fought for creative control, and reshaped the image of the female star. Her body was flown back to Los Angeles, where she was laid to rest at Forest Lawn Memorial Park. Her tombstone bears a short inscription she had chosen herself. She did it the hard way. It was the perfect summary of a life lived without compromise. In a quiet Parisian hospital room, one of Hollywood's fiercest lights went out, leaving behind a legacy that still burns bright. Number 6. Sean Connery. On October 31st in the year 2020, the film world awoke to the news that the original James Bond had died peacefully in his sleep at his home in Nassau, Bahamas. He was 90 years old. For decades, Sean Connery had been the image of rugged charm and timeless masculinity, a symbol of cinematic power who helped shape modern film heroes. His death, though gentle, carried the weight of a global farewell. In the final years of his life, Connery had withdrawn from the public eye. After suffering from dementia, he chose to live quietly by the sea, far from the chaos of fame and cameras. His wife Micheline described his final hours as serene. She said he slipped away during the night, and that it was exactly how he wanted to go, without pain, without spectacle. The man who had once traveled the world in tuxedos and Aston Martins ended his days surrounded by peace, ocean air, and the woman he had loved for decades. His passing marked the end of an era not only for James Bond, but for a generation of classic Hollywood icons. From his early days in Edinburgh to his rise as the suave secret agent in No, Connery had carried himself with confidence and quiet intensity. Yet beyond the tuxedo and martinis, he was a man of depth. He fought for his creative rights, supported Scottish independence, and maintained a stubborn pride that sometimes clashed with Hollywood studios. The news of his death spread rapidly. Tributes came from across the world. Daniel Craig, who later carried the Bond mantle, called him one of the true greats of cinema. The Scottish Parliament held a moment of silence. Fans from Tokyo to London to New York shared memories of their first Bond film, their first taste of adventure and elegance. His ashes were later scattered both in the Bahamas and in his homeland of Scotland, uniting the two places he had loved most. Sean Connery's life had been one of strength, rebellion, and charisma. When the world lost him, it lost a part of its cinematic soul. Which of his performances stays with you the most, and what made him unforgettable in your eyes? Share your thoughts below so we can honor him together. Number 7. Ingrid Bergman. On August 29th in the year 1982, the world lost one of its most luminous stars. Ingrid Bergman died in London on her 67th birthday after a long and private battle with breast cancer. The woman who had graced the screen in Casablanca, Notorious, and Anastasia passed away quietly at home, surrounded by her children. The date carried a haunting symmetry, marking both her arrival and her departure from the world. In the final months of her life, Bergman's health had declined, yet she refused to stop working. Even while undergoing treatment, she completed her last performance in the television film A Woman Called Golda, portraying Golda Meir, the former Prime Minister of Israel. The role earned her an Emmy Award posthumously, a fitting tribute to an artist whose talent never dimmed even in pain. Those who knew her said she faced illness with calm and dignity, never allowing fear to define her final chapter. Her career had been marked by both triumph and scandal. In the 1940s, her affair with Italian director Roberto Rossellini shocked conservative audiences and nearly ended her Hollywood career. For several years, she lived in Europe, raising her children and rebuilding her life away from the judgment of the American press. When she eventually returned to the screen, she did so with grace and power, winning another Academy Award and reclaiming her place among cinema's greats. In London, she spent her last days writing letters, reading poetry, and reminiscing about her years in film. Her daughter Isabella later said that Ingrid found peace in knowing she had lived fully, loved deeply, and followed her heart even when it cost her everything. Her funeral in Stockholm drew mourners from around the world. The Swedish national flag was lowered to half-mast, and thousands lined the streets as her coffin passed through the city she once called home. Ingrid Bergman's death far from Hollywood seemed almost symbolic. She had lived between worlds, Swedish by birth, European by spirit, American by fame. Her face, immortalized in black and white, remains a symbol of honesty, warmth, and beauty untouched by time. Even in her final breath, she carried the same quiet strength that once captivated the world. Number 8. Richard Burton. On August 5th, in the year 1984, news broke from Séligné, a peaceful Swiss village near Lake Geneva, that Richard Burton had died suddenly of a cerebral hemorrhage. He was 58 years old. The Welsh actor, known for his thunderous voice and magnetic presence, had lived in Switzerland for several years with his fourth wife, Sally Hay. His death came quietly on a Sunday morning, ending a life that had been filled with intensity, brilliance, and turmoil. In the final days of his life, Burton appeared to be in good health. He had just completed filming a television adaptation of George Orwell's 1984 and was planning to return to the stage. On that morning, however, he complained of a severe headache before collapsing. Despite his wife's efforts and the arrival of medical help, he was gone within minutes. The suddenness of his passing shocked both his family and the film world that had followed his every triumph and heartbreak. Burton's career had been legendary, defined by both his artistry and his tumultuous romance with Elizabeth Taylor. Together, they became Hollywood's most talked-about couple, their love affair marked by passion, scandal, and 2 marriages that captivated the world. They fought fiercely, loved deeply, and made 11 films together, each performance echoing their real-life intensity. Even after their final separation, they remained bound by a strange and enduring affection. Taylor reportedly wept for days upon hearing the news of his death. His funeral in Switzerland was a private affair. Only close friends and family attended, though tributes poured in from across the world. Elizabeth Taylor sent a single red rose to be placed on his grave and later visited the site in secret. Burton was laid to rest overlooking the lake he loved, beneath a simple stone bearing his name and the words, "Under Milk Wood," the title of one of his favorite works by Dylan Thomas. In his short but fiery life, Richard Burton had embodied the spirit of Shakespeare's heroes, bold, flawed, and unforgettable. His voice could fill a theater. His presence could silence a crowd, yet his heart was restless. In that quiet Swiss village, far from Hollywood's spotlight, the man who once roared on stage finally found peace. Number 9. Bruce Lee. On July 20th, in the year 1973, Hong Kong was shaken by the sudden death of its most famous son. Bruce Lee, the martial artist who had become a global icon, was found lifeless in the apartment of actress Betty Ting Pei. He was only 32 years old. The official cause was listed as cerebral edema, or swelling of the brain, possibly triggered by a reaction to a painkiller. The news stunned the world, for Lee had seemed invincible, a man carved from energy and discipline. In the hours before his death, Lee had spent the day working on plans for his next film, Game of Death. Friends described him as cheerful and full of ideas. He met with producer Raymond Chow that afternoon, then went to visit Betty Ting-pei to discuss a script. After complaining of a headache, he took a tablet of Equagesic, a common pain reliever, and lay down to rest. When he failed to wake up, an ambulance was called, but it was too late. The man who had redefined action cinema was gone before his time. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Thousands gathered outside his home in Hong Kong, some weeping openly in the streets. His funeral drew crowds so large that police were called to maintain order. A second ceremony was held in Seattle, where he was buried beside his son Brandon years later. In both East and West, the sense of loss was profound. Bruce Lee was more than an actor. He was a bridge between cultures, a philosopher of movement, and a symbol of strength through self-mastery. Rumors and theories soon surrounded his death. Some claimed he had been poisoned. Others whispered of a curse. Yet those closest to him knew the truth was simpler and sadder, a body pushed beyond its limits by relentless training and perfectionism. Lee had always believed that one must live completely, burning bright even if only for a short time. His words, "The key to immortality is first living a life worth remembering," became prophetic. His passing in Hong Kong marked not just the end of a life, but the birth of a legend. Decades later, his influence still shapes martial arts, philosophy, and film, proving that Bruce Lee never truly left the stage. Number 10. Omar Sharif. On July 10th in the year 2015, the golden voice of Egyptian cinema and the face of international charm went silent. Omar Sharif died in Cairo at the age of 83 after suffering a heart attack. For months, he had been living quietly under the care of his family, struggling with Alzheimer's disease that had slowly taken away his memories. The man who once commanded screens in Lawrence of Arabia and Dr. Zhivago passed away in the city where his journey began. In his final years, Sharif had withdrawn from public life. Once known for his wit, elegance, and magnetic presence, he spent his last days in a calm routine, often confused but peaceful. Friends recalled that he sometimes spoke about his past roles as if they were dreams. When he died, it was as though a curtain had fallen on one of cinema's most graceful figures, a man who had bridged the worlds of East and West through talent and charm. Born in Alexandria, Egypt, Omar Sharif rose to international fame almost by accident. Discovered by director David Lean, he became an overnight sensation in Lawrence of Arabia, earning an Academy Award nomination and opening doors for actors of Middle Eastern heritage across the world. His beauty and intelligence made him a romantic symbol in the 60s, while his gambling habits and love affairs kept him a subject of endless fascination. Yet despite global fame, he always returned to Egypt, his true home. After his death, tributes poured in from every corner of the world. The Egyptian president sent condolences, calling him a national treasure. Film institutions in Europe and America held special screenings of his most iconic works. His body was laid to rest in Cairo, wrapped in the flag of his homeland, and mourned by both the film community and ordinary citizens who had grown up watching his smile on screen. Omar Sharif's life was a mosaic of brilliance, contradictions, and restless wanderings. He conquered Hollywood without losing his identity, charmed audiences without ever shouting for attention, and left behind a legacy of elegance that few could match. Which of his unforgettable performances remains your favorite? And what made him special to you? Share your memories below and keep his story alive. Number 11. Ava Gardner. On January 25th in the year 1990, the world received word from London that one of Hollywood's most mesmerizing women had died in her sleep. Ava Gardner, the actress whose beauty and fiery spirit had defined an era, passed away at the age of 67 after years of declining health caused by emphysema. Her final moments were quiet, far removed from the dazzling lights and champagne nights that had once surrounded her. In her later years, Gardner had chosen to live in England, away from the scrutiny of the American press. She resided in a modest apartment in Kensington, her world reduced to books, memories, and a few loyal friends. Her body had grown weak from years of heavy smoking and a series of strokes that had left her partially paralyzed, yet even in frailty, she maintained a fierce dignity. Those close to her said she never complained, only laughed softly when reminded of the legend she had become. Her journey had been one of contradictions. Born into poverty in North Carolina, Ava Gardner rose to fame through a combination of talent, determination, and an almost unreal beauty. In films like The Barefoot Contessa and Mogambo, she embodied sensuality and independence, earning admiration from audiences around the world. Off-screen, her life was turbulent. Her marriages to Mickey Rooney, Artie Shaw, and Frank Sinatra kept her in the headlines. Her relationship with Sinatra, in particular, was passionate, stormy, and impossible to forget. Even long after their divorce, they remained tied by affection and shared history. When she fell ill, Sinatra continued to support her quietly, paying her medical bills and visiting whenever possible. It was a gesture of loyalty that spoke of their enduring bond. Her funeral in London was small, attended mostly by friends and family, while in the United States, her death made front-page news. Fans remembered her as both a goddess and a rebel, a woman who lived life on her own terms. Ava Gardner was buried in her hometown of Smithfield, North Carolina, beside her family. Her grave is simple, marked by her name, and the years that could never capture the fire she carried. Her story remains one of rare beauty and defiance, a Hollywood queen who chose solitude over spectacle and peace over fame. Number 12. Errol Flynn. On October 14th in the year 1959, the news from Vancouver spread like wildfire. Errol Flynn, the swashbuckling hero of Hollywood's golden age, was found dead in the apartment of a young friend. He was 50 years old. The cause of death was officially listed as a heart attack, but years of alcohol abuse and physical exhaustion had taken a heavy toll on his body. The man who had once embodied vitality and adventure died far from the studios that had built his legend. Earlier that day, Flynn had been in high spirits. He was visiting the Canadian city with his companion, a teenage actress named Beverly Adland, and had spent the afternoon joking, drinking, and reminiscing about his old films. In the evening, he complained of pain in his legs and chest. A doctor was called, but moments later he collapsed. Attempts to revive him failed. The doctor later described him as a man whose body had aged decades beyond his years. Flynn's decline had been both public and tragic. Once hailed as the most charismatic man in Hollywood, he was celebrated for roles in films such as Captain Blood, The Adventures of Robin Hood, and The Seahawk. Off-screen, his charm was matched by recklessness. He lived fast, spending money as quickly as he earned it, moving from one affair to another, and defying every rule that tried to contain him. Scandals followed him throughout his life, including highly publicized court cases and rumors that nearly destroyed his career. By the time he reached his final years, the glory had faded. Financial troubles forced him to sell his yacht and properties, and his health deteriorated rapidly. Friends who saw him shortly before his death said he looked frail, his face marked by years of excess. Yet he never lost his humor. When asked how he wished to be remembered, Flynn replied that he hoped people would say he had lived fully. His body was flown back to Los Angeles, where he was buried in Forest Lawn Cemetery. Fans lined the streets to say farewell to their fallen hero. In the end, Errol Flynn's life resembled one of his films, brilliant, daring, and cut short by the same wild energy that had made him unforgettable. Number 13. Tyrone Power. On November 15th in the year 1958, the city of Madrid was shaken by the sudden death of one of Hollywood's most admired leading men. Tyrone Power collapsed while filming a sword-fighting scene for the movie Solomon and Sheba. He was only 44 years old. Rushed to the hospital, he was pronounced dead within the hour. The cause was a massive heart attack brought on by exhaustion and stress. His death came as a shock to the film industry, which still saw him as a symbol of youthful strength and romantic charm. In the hours leading up to his collapse, Power had been performing a physically demanding duel under the hot Spanish Sunday witnesses. Said he suddenly staggered and fell, clutching his chest. The production halted immediately, and his co-stars watched in disbelief as medics tried to save him. The tragic irony was that the scene being filmed involved his character dying in battle. Life had mirrored art in a way that felt almost scripted. Tyrone Power had lived his life under constant pressure. Born into a family of actors, He carried both talent and expectation in equal measure. His handsome face and commanding presence made him one of the biggest box office draws of the 1940s. Films like The Mark of Zorro, Blood and Sand, and Captain from Castile made him a global icon. Yet behind the confident image was a man often burdened by fame. He longed for serious dramatic roles, but the studios repeatedly cast him as the dashing hero. By the late 1950s, Power had begun to take control of his career, producing his own projects and exploring darker, more mature characters. His sudden death ended that ambition, freezing his image forever in youth. The unfinished film was later completed with Yul Brynner taking over his role, though audiences knew no one could truly replace him. Power's body was flown back to Los Angeles, where thousands attended his funeral at the Church of the Good Shepherd in Beverly Hills. He was buried at Hollywood Forever Cemetery beside his father, who had also died on stage decades earlier. The parallel between father and son added a haunting symmetry to his story. Tyrone Power's final act came not before a cheering crowd but under the Spanish sky, where the lights of Hollywood could not reach. Number 14. John Candy. On March 4th in the year 1994, a wave of sorrow spread from Mexico to Hollywood. John Candy, the beloved Canadian comedian known for his warmth and humor, was found dead in his hotel room in Durango. He was 43 years old. The cause was a heart attack, a tragedy that ended the life of a man who had made millions laugh but had long struggled with his own health. That morning, Candy was in Mexico filming the Western comedy Wagons East. The shoot had been difficult, with long days and high temperatures. Friends said he seemed exhausted but optimistic, eager to return home to his family once production wrapped. After dinner with his co-stars, he returned to his room, where he spoke briefly with his bodyguard before going to bed. When he failed to appear the next morning, crew members went to check on him. He was found lying peacefully, as if asleep. The news reached Hollywood within hours, leaving both fans and fellow comedians devastated. John Candy was not only a star but a friend to everyone who had worked with him. From planes, trains, and automobiles to Uncle Buck and Cool Runnings, his performances had an unmatched sincerity. He could make audiences laugh uncontrollably one moment and cry the next. His humor came from kindness, not cruelty, and that made him unforgettable. In private, Candy had faced battles that fame could not fix. He struggled with his weight, high blood pressure, and stress from years of constant work. Despite medical warnings, he pushed himself to keep performing, often saying he did not want to let people down. Friends later said his final days were filled with thoughts of slowing down, spending more time with his children, and perhaps directing instead of acting. Life, however, gave him no chance to rest. His body was flown back to Canada, where thousands gathered to say goodbye. Steve Martin, Dan Aykroyd, and other close friends attended his funeral, sharing stories filled with laughter and tears. He was laid to rest in Holy Cross Cemetery in Culver City, California. John Candy's death in a distant land seemed deeply symbolic, for even far from home, he carried the heart of every person he had ever made smile. Number 15. David Carradine. On June 3rd in the year 2009, the film world was stunned by the mysterious death of actor David Carradine in Bangkok, Thailand. He was 72 years old. Known for his iconic role in the television series Kung Fu and his unforgettable performance in Quentin Tarantino's Kill Bill, Carradine was found lifeless in his hotel room at the Swissotel Nai Lert Park. The circumstances surrounding his death quickly became the subject of worldwide headlines and speculation. Carradine had been in Thailand filming a movie titled Stretch. He was last seen dining with colleagues the night before, appearing in good spirits. The next morning, when he failed to show up for a scheduled meeting, hotel staff entered his suite and discovered him. Local authorities reported that there were no signs of struggle, but the unusual details of the scene led to widespread rumors. While the official cause of death was asphyxiation, the mystery surrounding what truly happened has never been completely resolved. For decades, Carradine had been a figure of both brilliance and contradiction. Born into the famous Carradine acting dynasty, he built a career that combined martial arts philosophy with Hollywood storytelling. His portrayal of Kwai Chang Caine in Kung Fu made him an international star in the 1970s, turning him into a symbol of calm wisdom and spiritual strength. Off-screen, however, his life was turbulent. He struggled with addiction, depression, and personal chaos that often mirrored the complex characters he played. In his later years, Carradine experienced a remarkable comeback through Quentin Tarantino's Kill Bill films. His role as Bill reintroduced him to a new generation of fans who admired his gravitas and haunting presence. Colleagues described him as intense, unpredictable, and deeply committed to his craft. His sudden death, far from home and surrounded by uncertainty, seemed like a tragic reflection of his restless soul. His body was returned to the United States, where he was buried in Los Angeles. Fans from around the world paid tribute to an actor whose work spanned 5 decades and whose presence had influenced countless performers. His final days in Bangkok remain a mystery, but his legacy lives on in every film that carries his spirit of rebellion and depth. If you want to keep exploring untold Hollywood stories like this one, make sure to subscribe. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.